A glance in the mirror. Chapter 44. Taking the plunge. On Sunday, the 12th of May, 1987, Josephine and Terry flew out to Malaga in southern Spain. They had to assess the area for business viability, plus to look for a living area including a suitable educational system for Anna. And they were there to find a business location. It was important not to make a mistake, for time was short, and they couldn't afford to keep on flying out on doubtful promises. On arriving back home, Josephine had to offer up a report to the directors of Hill Samuels, who were impressed and positive, sufficient to tell them to go back and to take up residence. And a few weeks later, they both flew out on a Sunday to hire a car and look for a house and school. They had seen an advertisement for properties in Spain. One in particular caught their eye. It was at a gated estate called Sotogrande, in sight of Gibraltar, for sale with Andalucia properties. It was to them they were heading, to make their first call the next day, having alerted them to their needs by phone. Hiring a car at Malaga airport, they drove down the coast road toward Estapona, and hoping to find a suitable base to begin their search. Having taken a morning flight, they found themselves driving past San Pedro Calpe about midday, and noticing a group of people standing outside a small chapel next to a school, their interest was aroused, for they looked very English. It turned out that indeed they were, and that the building was the Coastal English Mission Hall, and they were indeed part of the English community. They parked the car and introduced themselves. The wife of the resident pastor was the first person they spoke with, and she asked had they come out to the morning service. They exclaimed that they hadn't, but they certainly would, and followed them into the mission hall. The service was very familiar and thankfully short, after which, as they were walking out, the pastor's wife invited them back to their house for lunch, in company with a number of others. And during the lunch they voiced their quest to find a home close to Gibraltar and English-speaking school for their daughter. The pastor, Walter, and his wife, Beryl, had been working at the mission hall for 5 years, and lived in a delightful bungalow close to the mission hall. Walter taught mathematics in both English and Spanish schools, whilst Beryl found personal fulfilment as a social counsellor for the church authority. We could not have found a more perfect couple to put us at our ease. They remained great friends. Walter at one time Anna's mentor, teaching her in the evenings to attain the next grade in mathematics. Beryl, a counsellor and friend when Anna sought an English university, remained one of Terry's few unforgettable and dear friends. Their advice was to seek out Trevor Dine of Andalucia Properties, Sotogrande, where they had been heading, and to look into the possibilities of Anna becoming a pupil at San Jose School in Estapona, where Walter exclaimed the very best education in the region could be found, of a high standard, teaching the baccalaureate curriculum. The education he believed compared to the very best English public school standard, and it was where he taught English, so knew the school intimately, particularly the high degree of discipline. San Jose was a fee-paying school with an accepted high educational achievement rating, and with the lunch served by Beryl they settled down to enjoy it believing their luck was finding this couple. That evening they stopped on the outskirts of Estapona at an apartment in a rental block of flats to get in a good night's sleep, ready for an exciting day ahead. Terry had not been forewarned that the nights could get so cold. Not having any extra blankets, they had a restless night, eventually waking to blue skies, penetrating sun, and a not very good breakfast of just cornflakes. Terry was never able to become accustomed to the Spanish style of interior house decoration. Everything was bright and hard, no curtains or carpets, but wooden shutters and blinds, and very heavy furniture, with the minimum of soft furnishings. The following day they set off travelling down the coast road in a hired car towards Estapona and Gibraltar, and as they approached the estate of Sotogrande, there seemed to be little activity. It was only later they found out that the estate agents weren't open on Mondays. Still, not giving up on their quest, they drove through the entrance gates to find the house themselves, and at last they worked out where it was and approached the front door to find a note pinned to it to invite them to meet John Reese, the firm's sales manager. He turned out to be both kind and thoughtful, showing them round the house, which turned out to be a 3-bedroom bungalow set in ample grounds with a pool. The garden had been levelled ready to have turfs laid, and the boundary hedge planted. The price was £175,000 complete. John showed them round 2 others, which, although suitable, didn't quite match the first, and they settled on the first property. That night they were invited to stay at John and Margaret's house, sharing their evening meal, and during which they came to know far more about the whole nature of the building site, its history, the type of properties constructed, and how the site had been developed. This whole week was spent with John Reese and his wife Margaret, and they were kind enough to show them round the vast Sotogrande estate formed by American before the Second World War, pointing out the polo grounds, marina, small shopping arcade, and the areas that were to become 2 new golf courses. It was very much like a middle-class area of Florida, gracious homes and bungalows set in beautiful gardens with tree-lined roads. The port and marina of Sotogrande were still under construction, as was the marina La Duquesa further up the coast towards Estapona. There was no doubt that this was a truly unique development of the highest standard. On Tuesday the 14th of May they met Trevor Dine, the owner of the estate agents. Trevor's friendship blossomed throughout all the years they lived in Spain. It was then that they declared themselves interested in buying a property. It was convenient to have all the necessary expertise in just one place to advise and organise. This agency was a key. Trevor advised that they should buy the property through a Gibraltar company. The building of a garage and driveway could be put in hand by the Spanish-speaking staff to have ready by the time their furniture arrived. It was necessary to have all the paperwork and government property rights put before the local town hall. Without the aid of his Spanish-speaking staff, they would have been hard-pressed to have had it all completed in time. A leading company of solicitors based in Gibraltar and headed by Sir Joshua Hassan, one-time Chief Minister of Gibraltar, was engaged to see to the rights of purchase. They introduced us to a non-resident finance company that dealt with offshore banking, companies for property transfer and purchase. Sotogrande was similar to a gated suburb of in California, where each property was at least a third of an acre, all painted white, immaculate lawns, palm trees, cactus, bougainvillea and azaleas, the obligatory swimming pool, terracotta Roman tiles and grilled door and windows, typically Spanish architecture using many painted tiles and natural stone. All this was set on the coast, with its 2 golf courses, 3 polo fields, shopping arcade, marina, tennis club, private beach and sports club. The whole estate was guarded and patrolled by uniformed guards, in operation both day and night. They visited San Jose School in Estapona and spoke with the headmaster and the English tutor, asking what the position was for new entrants, the procedure, fees, uniform and books. The headmaster told them it was believed the Spanish educational system was superior to other European countries, including Britain, that 30% of all Spanish children go to fee-paying schools. The school had a low student-teacher ratio. If children fail their end-of-term exams, they have to attend summer school and reset the exams, and if they fail again, they risk having to repeat the entire academic year. The curriculum leads to an international recognized baccalaureate diploma, and they would have to pay for books, stationery, and extracurricular activities. The headmaster handed them an application form and a detailed brochure telling them all about the school, its foundation, its aims and objectives, and answering all their many questions. Terry was most impressed by the school and the system. The course Anna was to follow was the lower secondary education, Educación Secundaria Obligatoria course completed at 16. If she were to go on to a non-compulsory education from 16 to 18 years, she would sit the bachillerato. He did say was that if we were considering sending Anna to his school, we would have to get her existing qualifications certified so that she could be slotted into the Spanish system, comparably with her then existing standard. A certification that could only be accomplished by someone who was totally au fait with each company's educational system. For instance, the Minister of Education attached to the Spanish Embassy in London. That concluded all that we had set out to do on the first trip to southern Spain. We had made some very good friends and made some contacts too, chosen a location and house to live in, and put into place a method whereby the property could be bought through a Gibraltar company to make it easier to sell when necessary at some future date. Now a school had been selected that would give Anna the best education possible. They were happy with what they had achieved as they flew back to start organising the packing and purchasing of all those things that they believed necessary to make life comfortable abroad. In June 1987, the annual convention for high achievers was held in Barbados at St. Lord's Castle. This was Terry's first visit to the Caribbean to see for himself how poor the inhabitants were and how meagre the job prospects. Paradise Beach, with its dinghy sailing and snorkeling, shell collecting, barbecues and dancing at night on the beach, were all romantic and given special appeal, knowing that life back home was going to be very hectic as well as exciting. David had not long finished his honours degree at Middlesex Polytechnic, soon to start work as a supply teacher. He later took a teacher training course at Roehampton and applied to take up a position as a lecturer in English at a further education college in Epsom. This he succeeded in doing, and once there continued seeking further qualifications by reading a master's degree course in linguistics. Ruth was working part-time in Harrow after working in a florist's. Benjamin was at Safeway's supermarket for a spell, then the Clementine Churchill Hospital as a porter. Just after Christmas, Ben had to go to hospital, have a course of antibiotics to cure a viral infection. It was not long out of hospital that he decided to return to education and read an honours degree in computer programming at Middlesex. Rebecca started a 2-year part-time course at the Birch Waltham School, New York, studying acting and stage management. And after Easter, she took a Greyhound bus trip round America, and later, in June, visited her friend Mrs. Harrison in Oakland, California, returning to New York midsummer. When Rebecca finished her first-year college course in July, she took on the job as hostess in a restaurant. She took the opportunity whilst there to visit friends in Long Island. The Morning Post brought her a hoped-for interview at Queen Mary College, London, to read history, and the following year for an honours degree course. She then flew back to attend the interview and to spend some time in England. Josephine and Terry went back to Bernier Gulf to put the house on the market and to settle any financial matters. Helen and Anna, Rebecca and Christopher came along too. This time we motored out, although it was a bit of a squeeze. The car got us there in style. They were fascinated by this experience. The time went by all too quickly before having to do an about turn and head back home. When they arrived back, their estate agent rang to say they had a buyer who was a local businessman who ran a computer shop in Buckingham and would be making an offer. This they did, and Terry and Josephine received a fair price, although having to contribute half towards having the roof rethatched. And you can well imagine what our waking time was like, with all that had to be arranged. The possibilities were enormous, and the scope boundless. It was wonderful to have found a buyer, to make the move abroad secure for Anna. Terry took out adoption papers. The object was to declare a moral responsibility to her, and for her demonstrating in an outwardly legal fashion that he would be her guardian and keeper. She was enthusiastic about the whole prospect, and so was he.